Jon Favreau has just made some interesting comments that I totally disagree with. Jon has recently done an interview discussing the controversial topic of why the Mandalorian Din Djarin is not the leader of Mandalore. He explains why Bo is a better leader than Mando. This is Jon explaining why, for some reason, Din can't be the leader. I think people expected Mando. He had the sword, he's gonna take the throne. He's gonna change from a traveling bounty hunter to arrogant or something. And you felt like, oh, that seems like where you're gonna go with it. But if you look at the clues, it actually, hopefully, makes you reach the conclusion of where we went. Because if you notice, from the first time Din Djarin uses the Darksaber, it's heavy for him. Even the armorer tells him that. This just seems weird. Like, everyone knows the hero's journey, where a character is bad at combat or at something and becomes better. Luke barely knew how to use a lightsaber in episode 5 and he got his hand cut off. Anakin was arrogant and unprepared, and the same thing happened to him. And Rey, well, I guess she's a bad example. But you get the point. At least from my interpretation, I thought because the saber was heavy for him, he had to let go and be one with the sword. In the Book of Boba Fett show, the armorer was trying to teach him how to be more attuned with the sword. So I thought the whole thing that Jon was going for was that Din would slowly become better with the sword and he would adapt. Everyone thought he was going to be the reluctant hero and rule Mandalore. His bounty hunting stage was over and he would go to a new chapter. But at the end of Mandalorian Season 3, it seems apparent that he's going right back to where he started, just a bounty hunter. I think most Star Wars fans are questioning this. Something seems off here. So what is it? Why would there even be a show about a Mandalorian bounty hunter, but when there's an opportunity to the throne, and Din had the Darksaber, he just gives it away and lets someone else have it? Unfortunately, I believe some of the out-of-universe elements are affecting Star Wars canon. As we all know, there were rumors of some potential issues on set of the second season of The Mandalorian, with Pedro not being able to take off his helmet as much as he wanted. While some of the actors say this situation was way overblown, it may not be. We recently found out via Twitter that Pedro is no longer in the suit at all. He only does the character's voice. Even with that info, it seems like maybe Pedro isn't even interested in playing the character anymore. This idea seemed to be magnified when at Star Wars Celebration, the actors of the Mandalorian show were on stage and they had a whole panel about the show, but Pedro was missing. Pedro made a quick May the 4th message in a video with other Mandalorian actors, but it was weird the lead of the show failed to show up to celebrate. Whether he was currently working on other projects was unknown, but it seems unlikely that he couldn't find time to appear for that weekend. Pedro has seemed very distant from Star Wars. While he hasn't really made any negative public comments about The Mandalorian, you can kinda tell that he likes some of his other work better. For example, it seems Pedro likes his work in The Last of Us more than Star Wars. This does give some Harrison Ford vibes, as Harrison Ford preferred Indiana Jones to Star Wars. Though it is fair to say that they are a little different, because Harrison has made some subtle shots at Star Wars, and it's more obvious he doesn't like the franchise. Either way, this whole helmet ordeal has had, in my opinion, massive effects on the story. And to state the obvious, Jon can't actually come out into public and say that Din was supposed to be the leader, but those plans fell through because of the Pedro situation. Obviously, he's restricted on what he can say. However, I hope that he understands what most of us fans are thinking, that Bo is not the right leader for Mandalore. Some people do combat that statement. People say she would be the perfect leader to unite all the Mandalorians. Personally, I think that is totally false. Some early examples of this is when multiple repeated times in the Clone Wars TV show, it was stated that Bo had no interest in being a leader like her sister. She explained various times that she was the warrior, and her sister Satine was the ruler. In Rebels, Sabine won the sword in combat and just chose to give it to Bo. Bo obviously knew that she couldn't accept and knew the consequences, but did it anyway. While we do know that she is loyal to being a Mandalorian, as a person, she seemed selfish. She lacked respect for Mando in Episode 1 of Mandalorian Season 3. She has a flimsy grasp on the state of the galaxy and is kind of stuck in her own ways. At least that's what it seemed before the third season of Mandalorian. Again, a good example is in Rebels, when she got all the clans to bow to her, when in reality she knew that she was not the rightful leader. Another example that we learned of is in the third season of The Mandalorian, was that she surrendered all her Mandalorians to death. Yes, I understand that she was doing what she thought was best and got deceived by Moff Gideon, but either way, she shouldn't have surrendered in the first place. Mandalorians are warriors and they have honor. The Mandalorians would have rather died fighting than die surrendering. Of course, if she knew there was a high chance that the Mandalorians would die either way, she would, of course, chose to fight. But nevertheless, she should have shown the honor that her people have had for centuries. This all goes to show that she isn't the leader for the Mandalorians. While I have just pointed out a bunch of reasons why she's not fit to rule, it doesn't mean her character is just a selfish, weak person, because she did grow a lot throughout The Mandalorian Season 3. She became more open-minded and even joined Mando and his clan and followed their rules. She saved Mando even though she didn't even like him at the time. There are many more examples of her becoming more selfless in this season. This was all done, in my opinion, purposely by Jon. I think Jon was trying to show that she was growing as a character, which she was, and that she could wield the Darksaber better. I do think the things she had done throughout the season made her character more likable, and I think she is a good person by the end of the show. However, for all the reasons stated a minute ago, she has already had her chance to rule and she failed. Now the ruler should have been Din. Din, the bounty hunter with a big heart, should have become the reluctant hero and ruled Mandalore. Again, because of out-of-universe reasons that were already explained, this didn't happen. Even with the out-of-universe reasons, having Bo just injected to the throne was not a good idea, even though I've grown to like the character more. It feels misplaced and rushed, just like every project that Disney has ever done. I do think, however, that Dave Filoni and Jon have had long talks discussing things like Bo and Din, and I do believe they probably agree that Din is the better leader, and that they are both disappointed by the rumored falling out between Pedro and Jon. Jon and Dave both have amazing minds and do a lot of good at Lucasfilm, though you can tell when they're given full creative freedom on a project. Things like Tales of the Jedi and Clone Wars Season 7 were Dave and Dave's mind only. And you can tell, when projects that Dave and Jon work on that feel a little unlike them, it may be possible that Kathleen Kennedy is messing around with their stories a little bit. As I've explained before, I think it's a possibility that in the Book of Boba Fett show, Kathleen Kennedy did mess with the story a bit. I've explained that Kathleen Kennedy probably wanted Grogu and Mando to reunite, but she couldn't do it in the third season of The Mandalorian because then they would be unable to use Grogu for the marketing of the show. This is, in my opinion, a serious problem. Kathleen possibly going around and tinkering and messing with things is very annoying. This makes me fear the Dave Filoni Heir to the Empire movie because I'm scared Kathleen will stick her nose into the creative side of the project more than she should. That may, though, not be a problem, as her contract does expire next year, and let's just hope that because of the fifth installment of Indiana Jones doing poorly, maybe she will, quote-unquote, retire after her contract expires. At the end of the day, I hope Jon sees The Mandalorian Season 3 in the same way most Star Wars fans do, and I hope they stay, Jon and Dave, for the foreseeable future at Lucasfilm. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.